What is the gun ban? Because people here have no idea. I still don't even fully understand it.
Yeah, so essentially how it works here in Canada, and I'm by no stretch of the imagination an expert on gun or gun law, and this, if you dig deep into it, we have some of the strictest regulations here in Canada as far as firearms are concerned, and we have for many years. And 95 is essentially when our restrictions on firearms came in very heavily here in Canada. But what they did here is they banned 1,500 varieties of, they call them military grade assault weapons, which was kind of used as, my opinion, was used as a little bit of a scare tactic to push this political agenda, because it's something that they'd said that they were going to do in their election platform. Military grade assault weapons actually don't exist in Canada. There's very strict laws here on restricted weapons. Which is a lot of the weapons that they were referring to. I'm gonna use the word firearms because they're firearms. A lot of them were actually highly restricted. So how it works with a restricted weapon here, I'm getting tongue-tied here. How it works with a restricted firearm here in Canada is you're only allowed, whether you have a restricted firearm. They keep using military grade, but there's a specific barrel length and how your gun is manufactured, of what classifies it as restricted or non-restricted weapon. One way or another, if you own a firearm here in Canada, you need to have a possessions and acquisitions license, a PAL. That means you have to go through a course and you have to prove that you know the specifics on the weapon, how to handle it, how to use it. And then you actually have to have a background check done by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Miramichi in New Brunswick is actually where you send your paperwork to. And if they deem you fit to have a firearm, then they will send you a license, and you have to produce that license anytime you want to purchase a firearm or ammunition for a firearm, right? So if you don't have a PAL, you can't buy a firearm or ammunition. You move into the restricted side of things, where you start going to these military grade assault weapons, which really it's kind of not a thing here in Canada, but it's a semi-automatic weapon. And I think the reason that they use this is they want to try to convince people that don't know what's happening with firearms here in Canada that we have a bunch of people running around with fully automatic weapons in Canada. Since 1977, you are not allowed to have a fully automatic firearm in Canada. They are prohibited. They have been since 1977. So whether you're carrying, and they continually refer to an AR-15 for some reason in this address, which is like basically a 223 chambered semi-automatic rifle that looks like something you would see in a Rambo movie kind of thing. A 223 isn't that big of a caliber of a shell, right? And no matter what, if you've got an AR-15, if you've got a 6mm Ruger, you are allowed to have 5 rounds in a magazine in Canada, no matter what. It doesn't matter what your gun looks like. It doesn't matter where it came from. You think of Jesse Ventura in Predator with a Gatling gun, letting it rip in the movie Predator there. You can't have that stuff in Canada. It's been prohibited here since 1977. You're allowed
you can't shoot more than 5 rounds without having
5 rounds.
Oh my God.
5 rounds, whether you're carrying an MP40, an M16, AR-15, you are prohibited in Canada to have more than a 5 rounds in your magazine. And if you have a magazine that is capable of having more than 5 rounds in it, it actually has to be machined and pinned so that you physically can't get more rounds in it. So the biggest thing about this gun ban is whether you're carrying, like I said, a 6mm Remington semi-automatic with a 5-shot magazine in it, or carrying an AR-15, you are allowed to have the exact same amount of rounds in each one of them. And if you have more rounds than that in it, you are committing a crime. You have a prohibited weapon. So they put this huge ban on 1,500 styles of firearms here in Canada, and they hid behind the fact that these are big scary weapons that are responsible for mass shootings. Well, we've banned a whole bunch of different things. So whether I've got a 6mm Remington or I've got an AR-15, I can still go into a place with only 5 rounds in it.
So what does the ban effectively mean? Do you have to give your guns over to the government?
The specifics we're still waiting to come out on it, but effectively right now, the 1st of May, you cannot take them out of your locked safe that you have to have them stored in. You cannot take them out anymore. That's where they have to stay, and you have a 2-year grace period, they're calling it, in which to turn them in. Now they're saying that they're going to have a buyback program, and they're going to give you fair market value for your weapons when you come to turn them in. So now lots of guys are like, well, my guns aren't for sale, or, well, what's fair market value kind of thing, right? And there's also an exemption. They go on this, he goes on this big, heartfelt referring to all of, and let me just say that we had a very, very tragic mass shooting in Nova Scotia here recently, in Canada, and Portapique, and there was men that went on a rampage and killed 22 people, including an RCMP, and they're kind of using a lot of these as the reason of why they're doing this with the gun ban, and the man that actually committed this heinous act was using weapons that were smuggled into Canada. And he did not have possessions and acquisitions license. He was actually, he was not allowed to have weapons according to the RCMP. So this man had acquired these weapons illegally. And anything that they just did with this gun ban does not focus on fixing that specific problem. They want to bring the firearms that people have legally acquired and registered and been vetted by the RCMP. They want those to come back into their possession, which is really heart-wrenching for a lot of legal firearm owners because it doesn't fix the problem. It just takes people that are obeying the law, and it takes their firearms away from them.
How much was this a discussion before? I mean, before the rampage, and we heard about what was going on with Nova Scotia, it was, horrifying. But
yeah.
Was this a conversation people were hoping to do before that, and that this was the opportunity, or is it that this started a national discussion?
Yeah, so that was, it was in their election platform, basically since 2015, that they were going to tighten down gun laws, which you'll find a lot of, this is the same thing where you have two very different opinions of what's happening here in Canada, where if you live downtown Toronto, in a condo kind of thing, a firearm is nothing you would ever have or need or use kind of thing, just because, the Toronto City Police, the OPP are right close by, and you have no reason to hunt. So why would you ever need or carry a firearm? Different scenario, out here in the country is where you use a firearm quite regularly, whether it's to hunt, whether you've got a coyote or wolf problem badgering your herd. If you're hunting deer, hunting moose, duck hunting, there's all sorts of different things.
When was the last time you needed a firearm?
Needed?
Yeah.
I haven't needed a firearm for a long time. I also like to which I'd say people would be like, yeah, so why do you have them? There's my point, Quick Dick. That's my point. Well, no, I hear you, but I don't need this cup of coffee either. I can live without it. I don't need this house. I don't need this computer. I don't need my phone. There's a lot of things we don't need. But where we are, it would take the Mounties, essentially, the RCMP, essentially, it's a 45-minute response time to rural places here in Saskatchewan. 45 minutes. What can happen in 45 minutes, Vance?
Everything.
Everything and anything, right? Lots can happen in 5 minutes. It's just the fact if you criminals running around in Canada are not going to have registered weapons on them. They are going to have illegally imported weapons on them that probably fire fully automatic. You can't get them in Canada, so they're coming from somewhere else, right? If I was a criminal, I'd be looking at what just happened and thinking to myself, well, we just won the lottery here, guys. Nobody's going to have anything that they can shoot back at us, even 22, and everyone's like, you can't shoot back at people, you can't do this. I hear you, but if it boils down to the fact that you're trying to protect your family in the middle of nowhere, or yourself for that matter in the middle of nowhere, and all you've got's a BB gun, and you've got a guy shooting at you with an illegal, fully automatic weapon, I mean, who's going to win the fight?